Welcome everyone. So just to explain tonight's process, because we have three separate items of business, we'll start first off with a public hearing for our zoning amendment bylaw number 348 to temporarily establish commercial marijuana operations as prohibited in all zones, and so folks will be able to come comment on that. Once the public hearing's over, then we'll move into a committee of the whole where we have a couple presentations, and then once the committee of the whole's over, we'll move into our regular council meeting for this evening. So first we're going to start off with the public hearing. So I'd like to call the public hearing to order. Today we're discussing the interim zoning amendment bylaw number 3419 2017 to extend the temporary establishment of commercial marijuana operations as prohibited use in all zones. So the intention of this bylaw, which we passed last year or earlier in January, is to essentially wait for the federal legislation to be released around the legalization framework, so that council could base our local rules based on what the provincial and federal governments are going to be essentially releasing in the spring. And so what we've done previously was to essentially establish a prohibition in all marijuana businesses in the community until that time. So this is just to extend the time frame to July 1st, when it's intended to be legal, was July 1st of this year. So we haven't received any inquiries over the counter, so folks in the audience can come forward. So first I'll just read out the statement of the chair, and then after that I'll call folks forward. So a public hearing is organized according to Section 890 of the Local Government Act. Tonight's public hearing involves the interim zoning amendment bylaw number 3419 2017. The intent of this bylaw is to amend the interim zoning amendment bylaw number 3408 2016 to temporarily establish commercial marijuana operations as prohibited use in all zones. Every person present who believes that their interest is affected by the proposed bylaw shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard respecting matters contained in the proposed bylaw. None of you will be discouraged or prevented from making your views known. However, it is important to restrict your remarks to matters contained in the proposed bylaw. A person may make their statement in writing, as outlined in the public notice, and if received by the deadline, their presentation will be read by staff at the public hearing. If a person wishes to make a presentation at the public hearing, they are welcome to do so, provided that the following criteria are followed. This is necessary in order to allow for the recording of the public hearing process. The chairperson will recognize only those individuals who present themselves at the table and speak into this microphone. Prior to speaking, please provide your full name and be prepared to spell your surname for the corporate administrator. Please also provide your residential or business address. Should you wish to read from a prepared statement, the city would appreciate receiving a copy for reference purposes by the corporate administrator. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions of you following your presentation. Please note that this is not a question period at which a debate takes place. City Council will not provide any comments on the issues raised, but will be in attendance to listen to your comments presented. Should no additional speakers present themselves, the chair will call 3 times for anyone else to speak to the matter, and if no one else comes forward, the public hearing will be adjourned. After the public hearing is adjourned, the council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations made at this hearing. So that being said, if anyone would like to speak to this bylaw amendment, please come forward now, and you can speak into the mic, and I'll call the first speaker. Okay, I'll call a second time for a speaker. And I will call a third and final time for a speaker. Okay, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing. Moved by Councillor Naish, second by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, I'd like to call tonight's regular council meeting to order. Recommendation that the regular meeting be suspended and the committee of the whole meeting be convened. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Rendhawa. All those in favor? Motion's carried. I'd like to call tonight's committee of the whole meeting to order. recommendation that the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting of December 11th, 2017 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Renhawa, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, first up, we have Kathleen Palm and Evelyn Basso regarding the CBC Radio 1 update. Please come forward and use the microphone there as well. There's a green button right on that microphone right there. Right on front, big green button. You just press it once. Yeah. Welcome back.
Thanks. The last. Oh.
That's okay.
There we go. Okay. Right. Hi. My name is Kathleen Palm of 845 11th Avenue East. I'm here with Mrs. Evelyn Basso, former longtime Prince Rupert City Councillor, and Lauren Clara Hugh and Dave Cook are with us tonight as well. So good evening, Mayor and Council. We come to you tonight first with an apology. Apparently our names were called at a previous meeting. No one told us we were scheduled, but thank you for having us here tonight. So we are here to talk about, there we go. Anyway, we're here to talk about the CBC Radio. So alongside the city, we have been advocates for CBC Radio for the last 30 years. And we are here tonight to stick up for CBC Radio again. Now, because of our joint community efforts and because of the efforts of previous city councils, our CBC Radio has a higher community profile than it did for a while, studio improvements, and sponsored events such as the recent Food Bank Day. We received a commitment from Ms. Lorna Haber from CBC that quality radio would be maintained and improved. For example, we were told that a few years ago when there was no one broadcasting here in the morning from Prince Rupert, we were told that that wouldn't happen again. And so we're hoping that that's going to be the continued policy, but we're not sure because of a staffing change. Ms. Haber has left CBC and she's now been replaced. Thankfully, her job's been filled again by Ms. Shirelle Tobin from Vancouver. So she is the current program director for British Columbia. She replaced Lorna Haber. So what we would like to do is we want to impress upon Ms. Tobin that information, entertainment, and news provided by CBC Radio is understood to be necessary, especially in the face of CBC digital expansion, and that digital expansion must not occur at the expense of CBC Radio 1, including its Canadian content. So we are not wanting to tell the CBC Radio 1 how to cover the communities of Northwest Coastal BC, but we want to hear about these communities, for example, Ocean Falls or Bella Bella or Stewart. Can't remember hearing anything lately from them. So anyway, we want to encourage them, and we're hoping that your city people will keep on helping us encourage them. How to do that? The summer of 2017 was a tumultuous time of evacuation orders and alerts for much of BC. And if any of you were listening, CBC just did an excellent job on the radio of telling people, don't take this road, take that road, don't go north, go south, how to get out of your community, where the evacuation alerts were being most urgent. So we would like to suggest that if you are in favor of this kind of communication, that the city let, I believe it's Doug Donaldson, the MLA for the North one, Stikine, that he's going to be doing a inquiry into how the fires were handled. So this is an opportunity for the city to say, you know, this really beats the time we had the tsunami warning, and CBC wasn't on the air till a number of hours later. But this time, people had their cell phones down or they ran out of service, and they were able to listen to the radio. And that was CBC, that was the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. So finally, we would like CBC Radio announcers to, like when they put out a call, they say, well, we welcome your story ideas. We hope that as the city or communications officers or even as individuals, that when you see something happening or you go, I would like to hear more about that, that you do contact them, because when they get feedback from us, then they know that there's communication going back and forth and that we're still listening to them. So as it continues, we also know that there are many areas of BC that don't really have much communication access to them, but they can hear CBC radio at night. So basically what we would like to ask is that this council invites Shirelle Tobin. We would have an audience for her. We would like you to please invite her to Prince Rupert, perhaps in the new year or whenever she's available to come talk to us, so we can explain to her how important it is to hear Canadian information, BC information, Northwest CBC information, whether it's something going on in the water or evacuations inland, that we would like to have her come here so we can personally impress upon her the importance of CBC here. So that's it. So we would like you to please invite her. So that's it.
Well, great. Thank you. I think that's something that can be done.
Okay, Evelyn, did you have anything to add?
No, very well done.
Okay, okay. And actually, I didn't get to say really thank you to the City Council, because over the years, that office down there is not closed. We still have local broadcasters, people like George Baker looking out the window and saying, you know, the weather says it's this, but really it's not what it is. They're giving us the straight goods, and we can be thankful that they're still here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, George. Okay. Next up, we have a presentation from Ralph Wick and Lisa Perillo from the Prince Rupert Minor Softball Association. Welcome. And I'm guessing those are the sponsored shirts for the season?
That is some of them.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank
You have a presentation, I believe, on the computer?
I do. Marco,
It's right there on the right-hand side there, that PDF there.
Is that good?
Oh, yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for having us here tonight. I'm Ralph Wick. I'm the president of Prince Rupert Minor Softball Association, and this is Lisa Perillo, the secretary of our league. We had a presentation prepared to come in and ask you to consider funding improvements to Doug Kerr Field for next season. However, rumor has it you beat us to it and you allocated some money for it, which we very much appreciate. Thank you. But if you don't mind, we would like to carry on with the presentation we had, which will explain a little bit about our league and why this is important to us.
Absolutely. And I'll just add that one of the reasons why council made that decision is because you had approached us last year, and we weren't in a position to do that last year, but we spent some time throughout the last year trying to plan and organize, wanting to make sure that there was a dog park that had a place to go, the field, and so it all worked out really well. That $100,000 for the McKay Street Park really what really helped this actually happen. And so it was because of you guys coming and talking to us that we were able to get this done. So it's not us beating you to the punch, it's us working together to make sure we're hearing you, and we're happy to do it. So
Absolutely.
let's hear about the league. Absolutely.
Sounds good. So just a little bit about our league. Prince Rupert Minor Softball Association was incorporated in March of 2016 as a not-for-profit. This came into fruition after a fun game that we had in 2015, where we tried to get about enough kids together for 2 teams, just to kind of introduce the game to some of our children and their friends. And we had over 40 kids show up. And there was indications that they wanted to continue playing. They had a really good time. So a group of us sought to work to bring it in for the following season. So we have a 7-member board, and we've averaged over the first 2 seasons 124 registered players from the ages of 6 to 18 years old. Locally, we spent about $25,000, and we've made a real conscious effort to support our local business. We haven't outsourced for our uniforms, our equipment, whatnot. We've supported local sporting goods stores and local clothing and sporting supply stores, stationery businesses that can do our scheduling and our registration forms and whatnot. So almost every cent of the money that we've taken in has been spent locally. One thing that, one of our goals is to strive to improve the quality of life of our youth, which we believe aligns really well with the city's community quality of life plan, as well as the redesign and rebuild Rupert plans that council has implemented. So we look forward to being a partner in that with you going forward. That picture is a picture of two of my dogs. So I put that on there because I want you to understand that I'm also a user of the field as a dog park. So I understand the concerns and the need for space for dogs and dog owners. Regarding the use of this, or the bringing this field back on the line as a ball field, we've been in discussions since early 2016, primarily with the Recreation Commission. Some of the members, of course, of that group are on council, and like you touched on, I mean, we have been working on this for quite some time. So thank you for continued dialogue and working towards this for us. So why Doug Kerr? For one, it is a designated ball field. We needed space, and we wanted to see about bringing this space back on the line for our use. It is minor league dimensions, which some of the other fields in town are not. It gives us the potential to provide a greater capacity and increase flexibility to our users and to our league. And some of the other facilities that we have locally that we've been using are limited in some respects. Doug Kerr being available to us would allow us to reduce our weekend play, which I think is very important for our volunteer base. We have a lot of people that are involved in our league that are also minor hockey coaches, and they give up a lot of weekends throughout the winter. Come springtime, I think it's important to a lot of families that they have the weekends available to themselves. So to do more recreational activities and family-based things without being tied down to a certain activity. So being able to, it's worked for us so far going on a Sunday evening, but we can see there has been some strain as we get further into the season. But bringing this field back online would alleviate that for us and for our, the people involved in our league. The extra space would also give us the opportunity to hold tournaments locally. We have been involved in Terrace and Smithers tournaments, and so we have an idea of the number of teams we might be able to get here. This extra field will allow us to accommodate and bring more people and teams to the community. And of course, provided that the dog users do have an alternate area, we'd have less conflict with other user groups. And just to touch on the fields that we have been using, Roosevelt Park is our primary use field. We have shared it with other user groups, primarily the youth soccer and the Radio Flyers Club. And we've kind of worked around them the best that we can. And the field is best suited for the older age groups just because of really the size of the infield. I mean, as you can see by the picture, it's a long dirt infield, and the younger kids, they would never really get to play on the grass on that field, per se. So it's better designed for older groups. Crestview Field we've been using for our younger groups the last couple of years. And it's best suited for our younger groups. The grass is very forgiving, and the dimensions are such that it's not suitable for older groups. It's just too short. These two fields are the ones that are down at the Civic Center at Petulo Park. Chris McGuire, the men's field, and I don't know if it's been officially renamed Paddy Hutchin, but in the common name that they've given the field out about the city is the Paddy Hutchin Field. It was a slow pitch player passed away a few years ago, and that's the ladies' field. There's limited availability to those for us because of other user groups, the Cane Island slow pitch primarily, which is good. We've worked with them and we've worked around each other's schedules, and we've tried not to step on their toes too much. But it's worked out fairly well. But the dimensions again for those fields are too big for our younger groups, and as you can see in the picture on the right, that was our year-end play day this last year. We brought all the teams to those fields so we could have everybody together for a day, and that's an under 10 age group, and because of the size of the infield, it didn't really work that well for them. So which just speaks to the importance of Doug Kerr back for us again for the younger groups and middle-aged groups. So regarding Doug Kerr, we appreciate the continuing dialogue surrounding it, and we acknowledge that another user group currently uses it. We're thankful that it can be available soon for its intended purpose, and we're glad that a suitable location has been found and will be made available to the dog owners at some point soon. And I'd be remiss if I didn't come here and give kudos to the rec department staff and management there. They've been fantastic to deal with, and I think it's important that you know that. I can't say enough about them down there. Moving forward, with the new field soon to be at our disposal, we hope. Some of the things that we have planned for 2018. We've just received notification from Softball BC that they are going to sponsor clinics for us here. Coaching development, pitching clinics, and player development clinics. So those will be 3 different clinics that they're going to hold here between mid-March and mid-April. We're looking at instituting the Tim Hortons Learn to Play program for our younger groups. It's a more structured approach to bringing the game to the younger age groups in our community. And we're going to 2018, pardon me, is a BC Summer Games year. The BC Summer Games has youth that are 16 or younger involved. 2 years ago, in our first season, we had 3 local kids that were involved in that in our first season, and we're hoping to have more. We will have a lot going to tryouts, and we hope to make have a few on that team as well, going and representing our zone in Cowichan this summer or next summer. So, and again, we just wanted to thank you for everything that Council has done and working with us on this so far. Council and, of course, the Rec Commission and the Recreation staff and Public Works, for that matter. Thank you very much.
I just want to say thank you to your organization, too. I used to play baseball when I was a kid here, and it closed down when the mill went down, and we weren't able to play anymore, and I remember what a sad story that was. So it was a huge part of my life growing up, and I know to see it coming back and see you putting this type of effort in, it's just great for the community. So thank you, guys. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any thoughts from council? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for your perseverance and patience.
No, thanks for everything.
Okay, next we have just an open period where anyone from the public can come ask questions of council. So anyone who would like to come forward to talk to council may do so now. Welcome, Mr. Golden.
Larry Golden, 1601 2nd Avenue West. Thank you for the Pembina presentation. I enjoyed that, but it did. To me, it brought up the whole idea of greater transparency. And I know the council's busy, but it's. I would hope that they would try to get more of the public. So one of the questions that came up was by the council, they were going to sell it, and then they decided to rent it. And I would have hoped that would have been more bringing in public and explaining why that happened, etc. But as I understand it, there's $750,000 involved, and I've heard of several accounts for it. One was it was just bookkeeping; we just move it here to there, and another one said that by agreeing to sell it or agreeing to rent it as opposed to sell it, now the city became liable to clean it up. So the environmental cleanup, and that's sort of where the most of what my question is the city, and how are we going to pay for that and stuff like that, which sort of comes to the whole concept of legacy. Legacy was a way of the city maximizing its money for selling properties, but we don't want it to becoming a source of doing all this work, maybe renovations, et cetera, out of the purview of the public knowledge. So I would, and again, it's sort of like a question. Can they borrow money on their own? You know, I would hope they can't. I would hope it'd have to come through council and stuff like that. And the reason I ask is because, among other things, the dock, which according to Pembina things, they were going to have to be using, etc. So is Pembina going to fix the dock? And I'm not even sure that the dock per se is within the city limits. The Watson Island is, but I can't see that. So, and then talking to those guys too, who were very nice, they said that we're going to have to supply them the power. And there's a power station there, but you know, I suspect it's not just a matter of connecting this cable. It's going to be much more expensive than that. So that's what it comes down to. These things are potentially going to be very expensive, and can we be much more transparent about how we're going to handle that? Take the environmental cleanup and just leave it there. Are we going to do the environmental cleanup in that? Because now, as I understand, we're obligated to do it.
Yeah, I can answer your questions. Actually, we're going to be coming out with more information in the new year, but it's these are simple answers to answer. So the $750,000, essentially because it's gone from land to asset, is actually from the previous unpaid taxes. So that's kind of where that $750,000 is coming from. In terms of the cleanups, we have a schedule of activities from the Ministry of Environment. The model moving forward is that whatever the ministry deems needs remediated, it'll be on a site-to-site basis. So Pembina will come and do an assessment of their site, and if there is a remediation or a cost to that, they will pay for that cleanup, and then the city will pay them back over time through leasehold improvements. So that's the way that will happen, and those schedules of events are still being determined with the Ministry of Environment.
Yeah, so I think the dock is going to be very expensive, so they're going to be using it. So you're saying that they will be the one that fixes it up, and then we'll worry about it.
That's correct.
And what do you mean the $750,000 is from unpaid taxes? If it's unpaid taxes, we don't have the money.
Ms. Bob, maybe if you can, yeah.
Anytime a property goes to tax sale, it's because there's taxes that we're owing to the community. So any property that is deemed to be purchased by the city at tax sale, the value of that is put into inventory for sale. So it is already sitting on our financial statements. That is the value of taxes in inventory for sale. And as mentioned in my report last week, it is the prorated portion of the taxes that are sitting in inventory for sale with respect to Watson Island. Again, all came to us through the tax sale.
And would you elaborate on what you mean by prorated? So that means Much more, that's just one little slice of the remediation.
That is one little slice of what the taxes are.
The unpaid taxes.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. Anyone else from the public that'd like to talk to council today? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to adjourn the committee of the whole and convene our regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Ranhawa. All those in favor? Thank you very much for coming this evening. We'll see you on the ball field. Come talk to me in the new year. Okay, item 2. So, recommendation that the agenda for the regular council meeting of December 11th, 2017 be adopted with the addition of late item 6A, BC Rural Dividend Program funding application for the McClymont Park Trail design and engineering, and item 8, resolution from closed meeting. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3A, recommendation of the minutes of the special council meeting of December 4th, 2017 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Motion's carried. And item 3B, recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting of December 4th, 2017 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Randhawa, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, first up, we have a report from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the BC Rural Dividend Program funding application for McClymont Park Trail Design and Engineering. Sounds like we might be able to help out here.
That's correct. So at the December 4th, 2017 regular meeting, Council heard from the Cayen Island Trail Enhancement and Recreation Society regarding their inability to apply for a provincial grant, which Council had provided a letter of support back on May 23rd, 2017. Council then directed staff to investigate whether the city could apply for the grant in lieu of the society. Staff have met with representatives of the Trail Society, and both organizations believe the best alternative is for the city to apply for the grant. The property is owned by the city, and any design work should have significant input and oversight by the city, given city utilities run alongside the trail. The McClymont Park Trail was once the city's premier linear trail. Given the diminished financial capacity of the city over the past 15 years, the trail has not been a priority for revitalization. The availability of this grant and the momentum the Trail Society has generated for the revitalization of trails on Cayen Island means the city can now begin exploring the renewal of this trail, which ties in with many of the open spaces value community members have expressed during the city's redesign project. Should the city receive grant approval, the city would manage the project and select a consultant to perform the design and engineering work. The consultation process would include engaging with the public and stakeholder groups. After completion of the design, the next step will be the implementation of the plan with Council's approval. The grant to be applied for is the Rural Dividend Program under the Destination Trail Project category. The intake deadline is December the 15th. The application is for a project budget of $100,000, of which 20% must be contributed by the city, with a maximum of 10% being in kind. The Trail Society has agreed to fund $15,000 of the city's $20,000 contribution, and Ducks Unlimited has agreed to fund the remaining $5,000 by way of in-kind contributions. Therefore, the city cost of this design project is staff administration and oversight time. Council is requested to authorize the submission of an application to the BC Rural Dividend Program for the design and engineering of the McClymont Park Trail Development Project.
Great work. So the recommendation is that Mayor and Council authorize the submission of an application to the BC Rural Dividend Program for the McClymont Trail Development Project. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Randhawa. Discussion?
Yeah, I think this is a great project and won't cost anything for city, and I favor this.
Great. Any other comments? Thank you to staff for figuring out a process forward. I know the Trail Society appreciates it. It's, they would have done it on their own, but they're such a brand new organization that I don't believe they have all their requirements in place yet to get these grants. So that's great. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, next up, we have a resolution from our closed meeting, and I believe there'll be a press release about this today, tomorrow? Tomorrow. So on December 4th, 2017, Council made the following resolution in regard to the new collective agreement between the City of Prince Rupert and QP Local 105. Moved by Councillor Cunningham and second by Councillor Niche that Council pass a resolution to direct City Manager to sign the new 4-year collective agreement between the City of Prince Rupert and QP Local 105 effective January 1st, 2018, and that this resolution be released at a future regular meeting of Council. So just for information's purposes, we have a new 4-year agreement with our local union, and the details of which will be released tomorrow in the press release. Or if you're very nice, you can go see Veronica right after this right after this meeting. Just joking. Okay, moving on to 9A, report from the Manager of Community Development. So this is the interim zoning amendment bylaw number 3419, 2017. So the recommendations that Council having heard from the public, gives third reading and adopts the proposed zoning amendment bylaw number 3419, 2017. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. Discussion? Councillor Niche, then Cunningham.
I'd just like it to be maybe the media could be, recognize that this is an interim bylaw and the reasonings behind it, because I know in the past there's been posts on media, which then on Facebook, and people start commenting on it, and tonight nobody showed up to talk about it. So I just want people to understand that this is a temporary bylaw till the rules are in place, and I've tried to comment on these and explain that to people. So I would hope that the media may be able to help us with that and explain why it's put in, why it's being done for now, and maybe explaining that as of July 1st, when it is legal, that's when we can move forward.
Councillor Cunningham.
If all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted before July 1st, and we know exactly what the legislation is going to be in that, and people are going to, I don't want to see a gold rush atmosphere July 1st coming for applications and that. So when would we have it in place after July 1st, how we're going to do this, seeing as we only have one meeting in July? And my second comment, I guess, is now that the federal government and provincial government have come up with a tax sharing on the new tariff of 75-25, there has been no word from the province yet where the municipalities are going to benefit from this, and we're going to be impacted the most. And the province has already said they're not going to filter much of that tax down to the municipalities. So I would like, if I know staff's busy, but to maybe write a letter or make an inquiry to what the province plans to do with that taxation money, if it's just going to, some of it's going to filter down for extra policing costs, because it's not the province that pays for our policing, it's our citizens. And I think if they're going to be putting, this is going to have any impact in our community, then we should be getting some more money in from that tax, because they're talking a lot of money. And now that they've come up with that 75-25 formula, I'd like to know what percentage of that 75 we're going to get.
I believe that the details of what those details are all going to look like will be in the spring. So it's anticipated that the municipalities will be able to start the process of getting on top of this in the spring to be prepared for the July 1st. So if it's necessary, we'd most likely do a special meeting to pass any sort of legislation. So we're hoping to have everything ready in time. I don't believe that they'll just spring it on the communities on July 1st. There'll be a preparing time, there'll be consultation time. Right now they've been consulting amongst themselves, the province and the feds, and they've been talking to communities and consulting different stakeholders and trying to get a sense of what it's all going to look like. So for us, from a local level, we're just essentially saying here today, we're just going to wait to see what they say are the rules, and then we'll make our rules based on their rules so that it's a nice seamless transition. So the spring is when those details will come. Any further comments? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, and lastly, we have a recommendation that Council adopts the 2017 5-year financial plan amendment bylaw number 3421, 2017. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Renhawa. Any further discussion from our last meeting? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Any reports from council? Councillor Niche?
Having a chat with my wife one day there after I was out of town, and I came back, and it was the night of the lighting of the lights down at the courthouse, and she had told me how she almost got ran over by a car on the crosswalk at the foot of McBride. She actually had to stop and wait. The car did see them last second and slammed on the brakes, but further in our discussion, we were talking about this intersection, and obviously we've had some pedestrians get ran over recently, and this intersection in front of the Longhouse has two crosswalks crossing First Avenue East and West, and one crossing McBride. And there's not a lot of lighting in that intersection, and the reason why it is a little bit of a concern is now that the gymnastics club is using the Longhouse. There is hundreds of children using those crosswalks, and this time of year it's dark, and we were just a little concerned of the safety of a lot of children using those crosswalks, because there's not a lot of parking on that side of the road. So a lot of times parents are having to park on McBride or across the street in front of the old swimming pool, because there is not a lot of parking there. It's a big yellow area. There's a bus stop there, so just would like maybe city staff to look into. I noticed the lights are on every second pole down there. There is a pole right at the intersection that does not have a light on it. I was thinking maybe we could look into seeing what it would cost to put a light on that one pole, just for the kids. There's a lot of kids using that.
I'm just going to quickly add, Councillor Cunningham, before I get to your report there, because you're segueing into my report from Councillor Randhawa's question last Monday. So I did have a lengthy discussion with Darryl Gunn, the Regional Transportation Manager for Highways, this last week, and they've committed to having an in-person meeting with us and our staff to discuss the entire thoroughfare, not just that crosswalk, but the entire thoroughfare, to discuss what the options could be around safety measures. So they want to make sure that they know exactly what those concerns are, do some more studying around that, and so they're going to do an in-person meeting with us. So that's underway at the moment. So in the new year should hopefully know more about what we're going to do about that, and that we can have that conversation in there as around what.
I was going to say that's a local one. That's not their problem.
Yeah, there's quite a few intersections like that. Somebody brought up an idea to me that they're using down in Vancouver, where they have these puck-size LEDs actually imprinted in the crosswalks down there in certain areas, and they've actually given me the name of the company that installs them and that. And if we're going to have a discussion, I wouldn't mind being part of that discussion, because these small LED lights are very cheap to operate. They're very versatile in all weather and that, because some of the areas they're in are very wet like us and that, and they really stand out. And I think they might be an alternative, but not as good as an overhead light. I would really like to see some of our intersections on 2nd Avenue. Unfortunately, it's the highway department and parts of 3rd that have some sort of overhead lighting, but with the traffic and that, another problem. Overhead lighting might be something that's a little difficult to put in, but I'd like to be part of that discussion as well as Councillor Nish, I think.
Other reports from council?
I'd just like to say Merry Christmas to everyone, seeing as we won't be talking to anyone again.
Absolutely, and a Happy New Year as well.
Yeah.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Means adjourned. Thank you for attending.